did. We did. Did you expect us to come this way?
Yeah, you usually come.
We tricked you. I just want to start by saying a couple of things. First of all, always difficult to trade a player and a person that has meant a lot to the organization and that we really watched grow as a player. Jimmy has improved as an individual as much as any guy maybe that we've been around. I mean, he took it upon himself to make himself into a great player, which he's done. And Minnesota obviously is getting a heck of a player. So he's going to be missed. With that said, what we've done tonight is set a direction. We've gone through the past where make the playoffs, but not at a level that we've wanted to. And in this league, success is not determined that way. And so we've decided to make the change and rebuild this roster, and we're going to do it through young players that we believe can play a system that Fred is comfortable with, and we're going to be disciplined and patient as we make decisions along the way. I think one of the big things when you set a course like this is that your decision making is clearly defined, and we will continue now to make decisions based on the direction that we've chosen tonight. So. Again, I want to make sure that, and Gar and I have spoken about Jimmy publicly many, many times, class person, great for our organization, and, he'll be missed. So with that, we'll leave it open for some questions. Yes, Joe.
John, at the end of the year, in the press conference, you guys talked about a rebuild would be difficult to do, and it seemed like in half you guys didn't want to go down. What changed between then and now? Was it simply kind of watching the finals and realizing you guys are going to need a bigger boat or going a different direction?
No, it wasn't so much watching anything in the playoffs. It was really this is the first opportunity that we felt a deal presented itself that made sense. I said at the trade deadline last year, this past year, that we needed a certainty in terms of jump-starting this thing. And when you talk about certainty, you talk about young players, draft picks that give you, a leg up on it. And that presented itself late today. So, the fact that we have 3 players now that are young, I believe, how old are the guys? Zach just turned 22.
Yeah.
Chris just turned 23, and Laurie just turned 20. It's 3 young guys. And, of course, Zach is rehabbing a knee injury, but we did our background on him, and he's come along great. We anticipate he's going to do just fine. And Chris, even though he struggled last year, we were very high on him last year. He's 5th pick in the draft. So when you look at it, we got 3 lottery picks out of it, and young guys that we're jump starting this thing with. So and again, it goes to the fact that we've made some picks in the last few years in our position, and we're going to add them to, add these guys to the mix. So it is rebuilding, but, for us, even though when you do this, you understand it's going to be difficult and that there's going to be a lot of bumps along the road. But the key is now that in this building, we expect, which we've had from our young guys, we've had 8 young guys in this building since, for the last 3.5 weeks that are starting to put the time in and the energy. And they're paying attention to Fred and his staff, and Fred and his staff are doing a terrific job of really working with them and spending time with them on their game. So it's going to be the little things and the incremental things that we hope to see along the way. But it's necessary. This is something we felt we had to do at this time.
I wasn't ready. I was going to ask that question that Joe asked. I'll ask this. Any idea what you're going to do with Rajon Rondo? Any decision yet?
Or why don't you answer that?
Well, I think we've got to now, get together and we'll start planning for July 1 and just take a look at our roster. We do have some roster spots still. Take a look at that situation, and we'll make a decision, by the time we have to on June 30th. So I I don't think we've made a decision at this point.
John, any decision like this, I imagine, has to go through ownership. I just wonder, how would you characterize Jerry Reinsdorf's reaction to this and his involvement in the discussion toward going this route?
Jerry was there every step of the way. I mean, we've had conversations with him for a long time about going this direction. But again, you sit there every day and you don't want to just completely start from scratch. I mean, the worst thing you can do, I think, is if you're going to rebuild, is to have very few assets to start with. And so we looked at it tonight when this type of deal presented itself, and we had a definite idea in mind of what it would take. And tonight we got what we thought it would take to at least jumpstart that. And again, we're not, we understand what this means. It's going to be a difficult process because that's what rebuilding is about. But I do think that, as we look forward, and it's not just today, but again, we've added 3 really talented young pieces to our team. And as we go forward, we anticipate having other high draft picks. And, you've seen teams turn it around through the draft, and that's going to be our job now. That's how we're going to proceed, and as we hope to get better through the draft and the choices that we make.
Guys, you mentioned you're adding young players that you believe can play a system that Fred is comfortable with. Rightly or wrongly, there's a perception that Jimmy didn't always respect Fred or undermine his coaching authority. How much of a factor did that play in this decision to trade him today?
It had nothing to do other than we chose our path, our direction, nothing more.
When will Zach be ready medically, as far as you guys know?
I don't know. We talked to him earlier, and I know Dr. Cole has talked to the people there. He's working. They say he's doing great. They say he's ahead of schedule. But until he comes in, and he'll come in early next week and take his physical, I don't think we'll have any type of timeline on it.
Gar, question for you,
Yeah.
Two-part question. First and foremost, Jimmy Butler's over in Paris. How did the organization, or you or John, inform him that this whole thing was going to happen, that he
Right.
was going to be traded? Because yesterday, 2 days ago, he said he wanted to stay with the Bulls.
Right.
And then the second part of this question is his trainer made a statement on Twitter tonight that said 0-82. I'm assuming that he means he thinks the team's going to do that next season. Worst culture in the league. I met drug dealers with better morals than their GM. He's a liar, and everyone knows. Your response to both those questions, please.
We contacted his agent right away before the draft had even started. And then I know, I think Fred had texted him. We tried to call, couldn't get him over there. And as far as the second, I mean, it is what it is. I hadn't seen that, but I guess that's his opinion.
John, you talk about, with adding new talent, rebuilding, you want to get as many people in as possible. Why did you guys sell that second-round pick to Golden State? Obviously, there's a lot of money.
We had some wings on our board that we had targeted that were the only way we were going to keep that pick. And they went before us. So in drafting Lowry and the fact that we have Nico's a restricted free agent who we intend to bring back. Bobby Portis, we didn't want to add another big, and that was all that was left on our board. So, and it keeps us now we were at 12 roster spots,
Right.
Gives us real flexibility with the roster. So we didn't want to just use up a roster spot on a player that we probably wouldn't have kept.
I wanted to ask, in terms of your first-round pick, it's a trend that you're going more European in terms of your roster. In terms of international players, what is the influence you expect to have on this roster going forward in terms of international players? And also, if from your statement earlier, if you're going with the idea that you're going to draft higher, is this season coming up, looking forward, going to be a season where you might decide that it might be difficult, but just something that you're going to plow through to get to a higher draft pick?
Well, what I said was we understand we're in a rebuilding process, and everyone knows what that means. So As far as international, we're just looking for the best basketball players. Lauri Markkanen is a very good basketball player. We're really excited about his potential. As good a big man shooter that was maybe as good a shooter that was in the draft this year. And in the way our game is going, those big mobile guys that can space the floor, give your guards opportunity to create and find gaps. It's an important piece. So again, it's all about building the type of team that you want, and we've been able to reset that tonight, and we're going to go about it in that fashion.
Hey, John. Over here.
Hey, George.
So last year, this deal reportedly involved the same players: Levine, Dunn, Butler. Were you thinking about this through the entire season, that if you could try to pull it off, you would try it again?
No, because last year it was not in our mind, it was not a good enough deal. There was not, and the reality is that was never really something that was put on the table. Those are just things that are reported on but not verified. So, as I said earlier, this was the first time a deal came across our desk that justified us going in the direction of a rebuild.
Fear in Levine and his.
Well, no, look, there's always risk in anything, but here's a guy that's 22 years old, was averages 20 a game. I mean, he can score the basketball, he can run, he can shoot the basketball. He shot over 40% from three. It's an area we're deficient. Markkanen shot over 40 from three in college. It's an area we're deficient. It's trying to find the type of player that fits the way we want to play going forward.
I guess that was, to some extent, that was some of what I wanted to ask as well. Was you obviously have a player that is coming off an injury, and another one who, in some ways, last year, if you could have gotten done, if that deal had been on the table as this one was, that you had less information than you have now, and had a struggled through his rookie year. Did you feel like this was just far and away the best deal that was presented to you all? Was there anything else that was close, given that you weren't necessarily in a situation where you had to deal Jimmy right now, since he's not in a contract here?
I think I said it earlier, this was by far the best deal we've had even presented to us.
With Zach being one of the centerpieces of the deal, he's coming up on the last year of his rookie contract. Are you guys going to try to get an extension done with him now, or are you going to wait until next summer when he's restricted?
It's something that'll be determined.
I know you guys talked about this deal being the best deal presented to you, but had there been a decision made that this was the direction you were going to go no matter what, that you were going to take the best deal on the table? Or was it a thought in mind that if you didn't get the deal that you wanted, or a deal like this, that you keep Jimmy and figure things out as far as the direction next season? Because like you said, rebuilding is a huge organizational decision that a lot of things have to fall into place.
We made the decision when the right deal came out on the table. It's real simple. I think I've said it a couple of times now.
Seems like the game has changed a little bit, and it's with Golden State having all those great three-point shooters. Was that in mind when you drafted Markkanen from Arizona, when you made the trade to acquire him, with him in mind? Because it looks like he's that type of player.
I think John said, I mean, obviously we need to improve our shooting, and putting the team together, shooting is going to be a point of emphasis. And but we took Lauri because he was the best player on the board, and in fact we had him rated a little higher. But and John talked a little bit about him. We scouted him extensively. He played at a high level at Arizona. Could really shoot the basketball. All our background checks were terrific on him. He's mobile. He's got a motor. He's a worker, and we just thought he was at that spot is going to be a fit for the direction that we're headed, and is a guy that fits with how we want to build this team and fits in today's NBA.
If you hadn't done this deal, what were you planning to do this coming season?
As far as
what kind of team you had, and any plans going forward for this for this group, this team?
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about, I think when we met at the end of the season, that, you know, if the right deal didn't present itself, that our team would come back probably very similar to last year's team. And, you know, like John mentioned earlier, you know, we hadn't determined that we were going this direction. We were going to wait until we got a deal that we thought jump-started going to a rebuilding situation and getting the right assets to jumpstart that situation. And we felt with the 3 players we got tonight that, like John said, is the best deal we had been presented with, and it was a deal that fit the direction we wanted to go.
Gar, this question's for Gar. I know you downplayed the Travell tweet and what he said, but is there something that in the meeting a couple weeks ago that you promised to Jimmy or told Jimmy that this trade now negates and can classify you as a liar? And also, are you concerned with, you know, the body blows that you've your reputation's taken the last couple of years, that this makes it for the future for free agents that could be kind of damning for the organization, that this kind of stuff gets out? I mean, Travell's a pretty, you know, admired guy throughout the league.
You'd have to ask Travell what he meant by it, but the answer to your question is no.
Nothing was promised.
Right.
And are you
Concerned about future free agents and you know how players talk and that could be.
No, because I got great belief in our ownership, this organization, the Chicago Bulls, this, you know, the city we're in and the type of team that we're going to build.
And let me say this, you know, these are hard things to do. You trade a guy that we really liked, and it's emotional for both sides. You know, I completely disagree when someone takes a shot like that. It's not right. It's unprofessional, and he shouldn't have done it. And I've worked with Gar a long time. It's an unfair characterization. So he had his motivation. Maybe he's emotional, but look, we are in a position where we have to do what we feel is right. And tonight, we made a decision to change direction. We've defined our path, and we're going to go that direction. And so if he's unhappy, that's on him, not on us. We've been honest with Jimmy when we sit him down and talk to him. We've been honest with him, and we do that with every player. So it's unfortunate that things like that have to happen. But in this day and age, you know, you're gonna hear stuff like that. It's just shouldn't have happened. It was wrong for him to do.
Are you concerned that it hurts the organization in the eyes of the outside?
Well, I know this, that when we get people in our building and they get to know us, then they judge themselves for themselves, and that's, to me, the bottom line. So I'm not worried.
I know I'm getting back on this Levine timeline. I mean, you know, he's clearly having a great year last year, and I know you guys are, when he's medically ready, he's going to play. You're not going to rush it. I'm not asking for a specific timeline, but given now that you guys are in a rebuilding situation, will you err on the side of conservatism, or do you want to obviously get him out there next season, or what's going to be the plan?
Well, anytime you have something like this, you're going to follow doctor's advice, and yeah, we've been through it a couple times. So, and the rehab thing, but I think we would, you know, in this type of thing, we'd err on the side of, you know, being cautious with him. We want him to come back healthy and ready to play. So you know, the standard by which we kind of determine the workload he gets leading up into playing again, that'll all be decided. But we'll be cautious. Yeah.
Let's do 3 more.
For either of you, with Dwayne opting in for next year, where does he fit in the scheme of things? You know, especially given in light of the moves that you made tonight.
Well, you know, I do. Gar and I have talked a lot about this as we've kind of studied teams that have rebuilt. You do need some veteran presence in a locker room, and Dwayne is a pro. He's seen a lot. We have yet to talk to him, but we will, and you know, we'll explain everything to him and talk to him about it. So, you know, it's, you know, he had the right to opt into the contract, which he did, and so we'll you know, we'll talk to him and you know, figure that out as we go. But I do believe that young guys still need examples of professionalism and You know, and Dwayne showed nothing but that, around our young guys last year. So I feel pretty good about that.
This question is more for Gar. How much of an influence do these trades and these changes tonight influence your plans or your strategy for free agency coming up this next couple months?
Well, we've talked about, what's happened with the collective bargaining agreement, what's happened with the cap. Obviously, this gives us a greater level of flexibility. We'll study that and look for opportunities. But when John mentioned before, we've picked up 3 young assets moving forward that we think gives us a jump start on a rebuild. The other thing we've picked up is even more flexibility, not only this year, but into the future, which I think is a big part of any type of rebuild. And so as the cap flattens and our young guys develop, part of what we want to do is have a level of flexibility to continue to add to the roster. So we'll evaluate that, this next week going into free agency and then make decisions after that.
Yeah, and we're going to remain patient and disciplined. That's right. the idea. And like I said earlier, and we talked about this at the end of the season, the development of our young players is important. And they've taken a huge step in this last month, being here, showing their commitment to getting better. The coaching staff has done a phenomenal job. They're committed to it. It's been a really good environment around here, and we're going to continue down that path. We have to be disciplined and patient. So we're not going to, right out of the gate, be throwing huge money at people. If there was a young player that we thought fit our future, we would certainly look at that. But that has to be the key.
When you guys met with Dwayne, did you present this as a possibility of the direction? Obviously, I think he probably would assume this would be a possibility, but did you guys talk about that specifically?
No, not really. But I think if Dwayne had been really concerned about it, he might not have picked up his option before the draft. So, so what's that? Well, but so it's no. We talked about a lot of things, and we talked a lot about our young players with him. So. It's the bottom line tonight is we've chosen a direction that we are confident in and comfortable with, and we really believe it's the right thing for the organization to do at this time.
John, when you were having these trade talks at like the height of them, when you had to say yes, who were you on the phone with? Were you on the phone with Tibbs, or what was the actual logistics?
Does that really matter?
I just wonder. What was it like dealing with Tibbs? And were you on the phone?
It was great. It was great. There's no issues with us. You go. This business is difficult, and sometimes you have to make hard decisions, and things happen. But we got a deal done. And if there was something that was between all of us at this point, 2 years later, or whatever, then we may not have it. Everything was fine. It was. I give Tom a lot of credit. He was professional, and I think we handled it all really well. It's great for them. They're at a position where they've had drafts over the last number of years that have got them young talent, which is what we hope to do in the future, and they had an opportunity to add a great player. It's going to help their basketball team. But for us, it sets our course, and that's what we need to do. Thank you, guys. Thanks. Yep.